It's all about peace, spreading love in the world. So I gotta represent rebels for joy, positivity. You know that we're all about it. Magic happens when you align your purpose, passion, and power. Just believe in your greatness. I know for sure the light that you radiate too strong to ignore. Emotional revolution. It's time that we start. Love, we need more. We are rebels for joy. Woo!
Hey, girlfriend, welcome back to Rebels for Joy. This is the podcast where we help you to align your purpose, passion, and power, all fueled by joy. I am Jillian Bolands, and I am here with the Bonnie Kelly. Hey, girlfriend.
Oh, I love it. The T-H-E-E. That's me.
Bold, underlined, capitalized, the Bonnie Kelly.
Beautiful.
And actually, it's quite pertinent that I did that much of a emphasis on it, because we are talking about something that is in your wheelhouse today, girlfriend. We are diving into forgiveness, and this is going to be a really, really, really powerful episode. Ladies, pull out your journals and your pens. If you are driving, just make sure that you listen all the way through, and make sure you come back and you take those notes afterwards. But Bonnie, first, I got a joke for you.
Oh, I love it. We need the lighthearted in the beginning of this one.
Yeah, we do. We do. This, I mean, it's going to be so, so, so beautiful all the way around. And it's going to be even more beautiful starting off with this. Why did the boy throw a stick of butter out the window?
A stick of butter? I don't know.
Because he wanted to see a butterfly.
Oh, gosh. You would think the master of cheesy puns over here would have gotten that one.
Butterfly, BK. Butterfly.
That's so cheesy. If you guys are listening to this, you guys, some of you have been sending us your jokes, and they have been hysterical. Like, I cannot say thank you enough. So if you're listening to this and you've got a joke that you absolutely think that we'd love, please, please, please don't hesitate to send it to us. Or even take a screenshot of this, and you can tag us on your social media, put us in your stories. We love humor and joy and fun, and we love hearing from you guys as well.
We sure do. And so let's get into humor, joy, and fun by way of a topic that feels really heavy, but in the end, the freedom brings you to that humor, to that joy, to that fun. And that is by way of forgiveness. So Bonnie, this is something that this whole topic is something that you speak so eloquently about. You are so well educated, and you have done the deep feeling work around how to forgive, what forgiveness even means. And I know that on the daily, I have conversations with people who want to forgive, but aren't quite sure if they should forgive, because what if they forgive and then that makes the other person, what they did, okay? And like, how can we really forgive and forget and all of that? Like, it's a jumbly jungle, the world of forgiveness. So I'm just going to hand you the mic and say, like, let's start at the beginning.
Yeah. So forgiveness is totally messy. And you guys, like this, when Jillian says that I know this through and through on such a deep and core and profound level, it's because I do. It was the catalyst that brought me to who I was, to who I am today. And so for those of you who don't know my story, don't know me, I was a child of sexual abuse, and I was abandoned by my father at 5 years old. So just those two betrayals, okay? Just those alone. I mean, those are huge, they're ugly, they're massive, but those locked up my heart. Right? They taught me how not to trust. They taught me how not to be vulnerable. They taught me that I wasn't lovable. They taught me that I wasn't worthy. And they taught me a level of anger that I didn't know that I was possible of. Because that hurt was so mounted up, the pain was so mounted up that it converted itself into just hate and rage. Hate for God, hate for my family, hate for people that have hurt me. And, that anger just begins to start to consume you. Yeah. It was consuming my soul. It was consuming my joy. It was consuming my happiness. So that's thick, right? When I say like, it's heavy, that level of forgiveness is really deep. But you might not have that same story. And I first off want to preference that that's okay too, because forgiveness at any dimension, any degree is worth the work.
Right. And we are not here to compare traumas, friends, right? Like we are not here to say like, oh, well, hers is worse than mine or mine is worse than hers. We all on some level, actually, we all on many, many, many levels have experienced the need to forgive, have experienced forgiveness itself coming toward us or being given to somebody. This is not on a sliding scale of who had it worse, because forgiveness is universal and it can be applied to any level of the need to forgive. Am I right with that?
Oh, so much so. I mean, I just found even just my modern day part of my life right now, my husband and I really got to this place where we decided that we had to evolve aspects of our relationship. And there was a lot of forgiveness work that had to just be done with that from the two of us, neglecting our needs and neglecting each other's needs and really having to find a way through that process. So if you're listening to this, when we say that there's just such a huge forgiveness scale that all of us need to practice, it is such a powerful gift that you give yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to start there.
Yes.
Because I think the biggest misnomer on forgiveness is that we do it for other people, to let them off the hook, to excuse or pardon or condone or release them of their responsibility or their guilt.
Yeah.
That's not it.
It's not it.
No, it is not about them. It is not for them. And this is the biggest thing to wrap your head around right now, is that forgiveness, and Tony says this, forgiveness is a gift you give yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with a client yesterday and talking about forgiveness. And so much of her belief was wrapped up with well, if I forgive, it's going to let that person off the hook, like you just said. And I said, no, sweetie, it's going to let you off the hook.
Yeah.
Big time.
Totally. And that was the biggest thing that I had to try to understand within myself. So part of the story that I kind of skipped over here was that I started being sexually abused at 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And the scandal came out around 14 years old. And it really threw my family into a tailspin.
Yeah.
And to try to save face and also to prevent this person from going to jail, my family, intervened to, try to minimize this as much as possible.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, it was pardoned, let's say. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then everybody just decided to put it under the rug. We're going to pretend it never happened. And we're just going to move forward with life because that was just crazy. It was too much to handle. Nobody wanted to deal with it. So we dealt with it in their heads. We're just going to sweep it under the rug and it's done. He only did it once, is what they learned and what they thought. Okay. So that's the end of it. Well, that's not the truth. Right. And so because they got to this place where they were excusing, pardoning, and condoning, I felt that if I forgave him and them, that now I joined on their bandwagon.
Right.
That now I was just pretending that it's okay. And every part of me was not okay.
Right. Because you were witnessing the deep knowing of what actually happened. You were witnessing people trying to minimize that. So feeling that rage and that hurt toward them for the minimalization. And so your belief was, well, okay, if I forgive, then I'm jumping on their team, essentially.
Yeah. And I just didn't feel right about it because it was such an injustice, right? I knew that was like an unforgivable thing that wasn't okay. That it was much more severe than what he led on, what they were led to believe. And so it really just, I didn't want to excuse that because I felt like everyone else did. And so, so I totally understand with what your client was saying. And this is the big part that kind of shifted the tides for me. Joanne Baranko says that you can forgive someone and still testify against them in court.
Right.
So where that's a mind shift is that by forgiving someone, you're forgiving for you to release the toxic emotions and the rage and the hurt and the anger and the shame and the guilt that is weighing on your heart.
Yeah, because you're the one that's feeling the poison. You're the one that's being consumed by the poison that has taken over, and forgiveness is the way to release that.
Yeah. And I love that you're saying poison, because in Buddhism, they say that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and hoping the other person's going to die.
Yes, exactly. Oh, I just got goosebumps everywhere. Yep.
Yeah, it's not going to work. And so where this starts to make sense is that when we start to realize that forgiveness is for me, this is something that I'm doing so that I can have joy, that I can have peace, that I can move emotionally present. knowing that I can still hold people accountable for their dysfunction and their, bad behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
that I can still seek justice if I want to seek justice, but I can do it from a place where I'm no longer robbed of joy.
Mm-hmm.
That I can have peace and happiness, even in the face of everyone else not taking responsibility, not admitting they're wrong, because it's not about them.
Right.
And the reality around forgiveness is that there's a good chance that you're never going to get an I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful, right? Because
Mhm.
that would be an external thing that many of us crave. If we have been wronged, we want the external, the other party to come back and apologize and try to make amends from
Yeah.
their point of view. But oftentimes that doesn't happen, and forgiveness gets to happen anyway.
Yes. Because what we're seeking is we want closure,
Right.
right? We want the other person to admit that they were wrong, to recognize that the pain that they caused us, the suffering that they caused us, so that we can feel valid in our suffering and our pain.
Right.
But forgiveness does not require that. That is a condition we place upon forgiveness that will prolong your peace and joy.
Yeah.
That's the reality, right? All it does is it continues to kick your joy down the road. It's like kicking the can. You're just going to keep kicking it because you want more than anything to feel justified in recognize as that you were the victim.
Right.
Well, sister, hear it right now. You were. That sucked. Whatever you experienced, whatever that you went through, whether it was a spouse cheating, whether it was some kind of a betrayal or abuse or neglect or whatever it was, here it is. Like, I'm with you. I get it. Yeah, that sucked. I am so sorry for you and that you dealt with that. Now, let's choose peace.
Yes.
Now, let's choose
Amen.
peace.
Okay. So, how? How do
The
we
big
do
O
that?
H word.
Right? I know. Like, how, I mean, because intellectually we're starting to understand it, right? We're starting to feel that. And I'm reminded of your saying acceptance does not mean acceptable. Right.
Yeah.
So it's understanding that, like, okay, I accept what happened and it sucked. Doesn't mean that it was okay, but I'm going to forgive for me. I'm going to forgive so that I can find freedom. Like, intellectually, we get that. What are the steps that we can take to actually doing that?
Yeah. Well, before I give you the steps, and I'm glad you emphasized it with an S on the end of steps, because
Yes.
it isn't a one-time occurrence.
Right.
I think the other big misnomer around forgiveness is that you get to do the work, like write a forgiveness letter or, seek, amends with someone, and then the chapter's closed. Yay, you're all healed and it's done. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
Forgiveness is an ongoing practice, and it's a choice you make over and over and over again before it ever actually generates a feeling of peace and forgiveness.
I just want to underline that whole sentence you said. Forgiveness is a choice that you choose over and over and over again before it ever actually elicits a feeling. So you're making a cognitive choice to forgive. Oftentimes, that first time, we're not filled with the warm and fuzzy little bubblies of love that we so yearn to feel when we actually forgive people. Oftentimes, that comes much later. Am I right?
Yeah, totally. And that's why I think a lot of people get hung up on forgiveness. They think like, okay, I forgave that person. I'm supposed to be over this by now.
Yeah.
And then when the emotions bubble back up, or when that tidal wave of emotion comes back in, all of a sudden they feel like there's something wrong, or they start to try to repress it. They try to ignore it. And they find that it just starts to build and build and build until they can't control it. And then they find themselves being reactive, short, or numbing out through food, alcohol, sex, work, just whatever they can to not feel.
Yes.
And forgiveness is something you have to feel through.
Forgiveness is something you have to feel through. Absolutely. So this is a choice that we're making over and over to elicit a feeling eventually. And getting back to the steps, it's a choice to actually apply it over and over. Like, we have to consciously bring in that thought process of, okay, nope, I have chosen to do this.
Yeah. So the steps of what you're saying is that the first step we have to do is we need to express our emotional state in its rawest and purest form in a responsible manner.
Yeah.
Key words, responsible manner.
Mm-hmm.
What that means is that you really need to have a sacred journal or piece of paper, something that you could truly put all your raw, ugly, mean, cruel, nasty thoughts and feelings all over.
Yeah.
Right. So these are not politically correct thoughts. These
Yes.
are the I freaking hate yous. These are the I wish ill upon yous. These are the I hate my stinking life. The dear Darlas of the
Yeah, we're not
thoughts.
sugarcoating anything
No.
with this. This isn't the rainbows and butterflies version.
No. The reason why we want those real, authentic, and why we want you to have a sacred space to put them is because you can burn it, bury it, or shred it when you're done.
Mm-hmm. And
And we
actually,
want
energetically, that's super important and it's super powerful because when you burn, bury, shred, like you are allowing the energy that was pent up in you to be turned over and transmuted to the universe so that the universe can take care of it. The universe will transmute it back into positive energy because it has been released.
Yeah. And when I started this practice for myself, when I truly was getting to those real raw feelings, is at first, first few times there, it was kind of sugar coated, right? I was trying to be, polite. I didn't want anyone or anything to see, or even myself to admit that I felt a certain way because I
Right.
was so conditioned to not be mean. And I was so conditioned, to be really considerate of others and rationalize my thinking, and be more compassionate to them. But inside I was just a raging mess. I was so hurt and so angry, and that was loud and that needed to be expressed.
Right.
And it wasn't until I truly got to that point, and it was by the third or fourth different forgiveness letter that I did, where I was just stabbing my paper with my pen, and it was carving through 6-7 pages with a big old FU, and it was not the F as forgiveness F of FU. Right? Like it was a big, ugly mess. And there was just sobbing tears. And, like I couldn't even get to the next step at certain points because I just would have to break down and just allow myself to grieve.
Right.
Grieve all the what could have been, grieve all the what my life could have been, grieve all the joy that I've lost, grieve all the pain that I felt, grieve the relationships I never had. As a result of these things. And it's messy.
Well, and that, I mean, so much is coming up for me right now because we think about forgiveness as this one faceted thing. Like, okay, all I have to do is let them off the hook, essentially, right? Like that's the way we view it. And actually the process, like we think about forgiveness and it's the end game that we've thought about, right? Okay, I have forgiven, I can move on, I'm at that point. But really it's the process of forgiveness that allows you to cleanse, to remember who you truly are, to get back to that sacred state of innate worthiness because you're going through all these different emotions. You're allowing yourself on a spiritual and physical level to experience release and pain and then like being rebuilt again. It's like the phoenix rising from the ashes. And we forget that the process of forgiveness is actually the most important part. When you can get to the point of true forgiveness of somebody or something, amazing. But actually, the journey toward that is what's freeing you step by step along the way.
Absolutely. And so from that expressing state, we really do need to then get to that bottom line. What are you afraid of? Like, what are you most afraid of happening if you let this go? If you move beyond this, because that fear is there, that fear of them taking advantage of you again, the fear of you looking stupid, the fear of just not getting your needs met, the fear of being walked on, the fear of being abandoned or abused again, the fear of being hurt, right? Like all of those are relevant fears. And we really want to address that. We want to call that out right to the mat and say, like, this is why I'm holding back. And then from there, we go into the conscious choice to forgive.
Right.
Now we start consciously making the choice because again, forgiveness is a choice before it's a feeling.
Right.
So we choose that I choose to forgive X, Y, and Z because, and we anchor it in our reasoning. Okay, we anchor it in our reasoning so that we can start to instruct the brain that this is my choice. I choose this because X, Y, and Z.
Right.
So there's actually a whole forgiveness letter. that I've designed, Jillian, and that everyone who's listening to this can get a copy for free right now. It's on our Rebels for Joy site. It's at rebelsforjoy.com/forgive. We've got the links down in the show notes for you below. And you can download this letter that I'm actually kind of walking you through right now. And you can begin the forgiveness journey of going through expressing those emotions, really acknowledging that fear, beginning to make those conscious choices, and then setting up boundaries.
Yeah.
Right? Having different conversations to ensure that you forgive, learn, and grow.
Yes.
Because you mentioned in the early on, one of the biggest thing that people get hung up is they like, well, I just want to forgive and forget. No, that's called forgive and numb out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's not dealing with it. That's forgive and coping. That's forgive and like skipping 50 steps to just pretend that I'm okay. That's going to totally catch up with you in the long run.
Totally. That's where the I'm fine, mindset comes from. That's where okay, I'm going to do this because once I do this, if I could just forget, then like everything's fine. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good over here. And that's not true.
It's not true. And it's not going to give you the freedom that you want.
Right.
And so we want to forgive, learn, and grow. And so part of that forgiveness process is that we have to find meaning in the pain.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Divulge.
You have to find meaning and purpose in the pain. So how we begin to do that is we have to say, okay, what have I learned, or how have I grown, or how could I grow as a result of what has been?
Mm-hmm.
And when we can anchor ourselves in a positive that resulted from the negative, now we can find our way into a place of joy.
I love it.
That is the ultimate end result of where we want to go, is that you have to find purpose and meaning in the pain. So you guys want to hear my purpose and meaning for being sexually abused?
Yes, please.
Because it's like such an ugly thing, right?
Yeah.
It's such an ugly thing. So whatever your spiritual beliefs, okay, to each is his own, but I truly believe that spiritually, that God set me on a path to become the woman that I am today, to serve you in the way that I do today.
Yes.
But he also knew that I'm loyal to a fault. And if I would have stayed in my hometown and if nothing bad would have happened, I would still live there, probably have multiple children, probably working a dead-end job, not really living to my life's ultimate fulfillment.
Right.
That experience forced me out.
Yes.
It forced me out.
You couldn't stay.
No. Well, I could have, but I chose not to.
Right.
Right. Because I literally, the pain of it was too thick and too much. And as a result, it reunited me with my real father, who was my other biggest pain, the abandonment, right? Of being abandoned from him, reunited me with him, and his losing his children had put him on a path to try to find joy back in his life, because he just was dealing with so much shame and guilt for letting us go.
Yeah.
So he was studying personal development, and here comes a train wreck ready to start a personal development journey. And he was able to hold space. Not only did we heal that relationship, but I was able to heal for myself. So where I'm going with this, I'm kind of giving you a little bit like
no, you're painting a beautiful picture. This is like, we can see the whole landscape here.
So it's put me in this place to start understanding personal development, to start realizing that I have a choice in how I feel and the joy, and start learning the skills that I needed to overcome my past pains and wounds, so that now I could be the woman I am today, who is filled with a tremendous amount of love, joy, and abundance, and is able to now serve other women to do the same, where they're no longer defined by their past.
Right.
All of that is a result of the pain.
Right.
So when I really look back at that, I don't appreciate being a child of sexual abuse, but what I appreciate is the woman I became as a result of being sexually abused.
Mic drop, girl. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you for sharing all that.
So that's amazing. I was going to say, the big thing is like, maybe you haven't got to that yet. All right. But ultimately, that's what we want to figure out, is like, this is why I say, or how could it benefit you? What could you learn from it? And when we can connect purpose and pain together, when we really find the meaning in the pain, that allows us to really ignite this level of joy that is so anchored and so grounded in peace and confidence and solitude, that it cannot be taken, destroyed, or dismantled.
I just want to like give you a standing ovation right now. This is so good. I'm like, and I've heard your story before. I'm still like at the edge of my seat. Like our listeners are like, girl, this is so potent, Bonnie. This is amazing. First of all, thank you for sharing your story as an example. And also thank you for all of the tidbits, all the nuggets, all the nuances of this, because it's not a black and white process.
No. In fact, I actually want to share a story of one of my clients. She did not realize that forgiveness was the reason why she wasn't abundant. You want to hear another really cool story?
Please.
So I was working with this woman, and she was used to living a multiple 7-figure income lifestyle, right? Her husband was very wealthy. She was a stay-at-home mom. He was doing wonderful things until one day he came home. He said, I'm moving to Nevada. I lost all of our money and I'm going to change my name and I have nothing to give you. So see you later.
Whoa.
Yeah. So completely left her with 2 children, no money. She never worked, right? She had no skill sets, no job. And he literally moved to another state, changed his name, and started a life all over again. They just went bankrupt. Okay.
Wow. How's
Yeah.
that for
So
a Tuesday?
left her, left her on unemployment. She was so angry. And what she actually called me on is that she knew she was self-sabotaging in her business. And she's like, okay, I'm a self-sabotaging specialist, just in case you guys don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So she called me to say like, all right, where is this showing up? And what we discovered was it was just all the resentment, the hurt, and the rage that she was still holding on to, that there was a part of her subconsciously that needed to remain in poverty just to spite him.
Just to stay mad at him.
Just to stay mad at him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was the biggest revelation for her. So she ended up taking my Forgiving the Unforgivable course. Mm-hmm. She did the forgiveness letters that we're telling you to go do. Okay. The one that you get to download for free. And she dove into it like head first, did the work. And I'm not even kidding. She found not only inner peace, her business started skyrocketing. She was able to find so much joy and then get out of the poverty state that she was living in, all because she decided to commit to forgiving.
Oh, I love a fairy tale ending like that. Oh, it just makes me so happy. Like, go girl. Because you know what? She didn't have to choose any of that. She could have stayed in that place and she could have stayed right. Right? We've talked about this before. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? If she had stayed in that place where she could have remained angry, she would have been right. That she was angry, he was bad, this is not okay, I'm going to stay poverty stricken. But she chose to rise above that because she chose joy.
Yeah. At the root of a lot of our self-sabotaging behaviors, at the very root is a need to forgive a parent, a need to forgive a spouse, a need to forgive some abuser, a need to forgive ourselves, period. It's like this secret little weapon that's underneath it, right? We don't always wave the flag of selling forgiveness because forgiveness isn't sexy. Okay,
Right.
Let's be real, right? It's not the sexiest thing. You know, people are like, well, I want to end self-sabotage. So we can talk about self-sabotage all day long, right? And people are like, ooh, yes, I do that. I procrastinate. I avoid. I totally shut down. I'm not living my life's potential. But underneath all of that is this need to do the inner work, the deep work, to let go of our past, to really bring ourselves emotionally present. And Jillian and I have a way that you can do that.
We sure do. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm like so excited.
So because with that, as we talked about, so forgiveness is a lot of different dimensions. You have to understand a lot of the hangups of why you haven't been able to forgive, connecting the dots of what you need to forgive in the first place. And then from that place, learn and cultivate a good forgiveness practice that you could use over and over again. And then from there, be able to really recognize, okay, how can I redefine the relationships of the people that are still in my life that have hurt me in a way that now is fulfilling this higher version of me? And we do that through expectations and boundaries. So the forgiveness letter that we're giving you, you can download it again by clicking the link below. It's going to not only give you that, it's also going to give you an opportunity to join us. If you know that this is that next level of work that you need to do, there is a special offer that is attached to it. You guys can unlock the entire course for just $97.
Amazing.
unreal. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a $400 course that we don't ever discount,
Yeah.
and we're totally discounting it for you right now. So
Yeah.
if you are interested in that, there's that we'll link it below as well. So we'll just link both below.
Yeah.
So we'll do the direct link to the course, and then we'll direct, because you'll get the forgiveness letter in the course as well, or just start doing the forgiveness letter.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, either way, the work works. We want you to do the work. And
Yeah.
so we will gift and love and support you every step of the way if this is what you know you need to do next.
And ladies, we just invite you to answer the call, right? If you resonated with this, if you know that you are being held back in some area of life because there is a huge wedge in between you and something or someone, and forgiveness is the way through that, right? We feel through it. Then I invite you. Bonnie has, like I said, her forgiveness letter is absolutely unbelievable, just doing that in and of itself. And if you want more support and guidance, then the course is it's truly a no-brainer, because it is a $400 value course. And for $97 to be able to reclaim your life, I mean, to be able to live in that freedom that forgiveness will give you, what better gift could you ever possibly give yourself? Truly.
And we bundled in all kinds of amazing stuff, you guys. Like, you have a 2-hour live version of that class. You have a how to have a functional relationship with a dysfunctional person course that's in there as well. You have all these meditations and affirmations. You'll see it when you go onto the sales page. There is just so much in there to ensure that you truly do find that emotional peace that you so long for, that you've been asking for, and you're just not sure how to get there. Like, this is the gateway for you. So even if, like, what you need to forgive is old, not like fresh and present, it's going to work for you. And so we do invite you to join us on that. We invite you to join us over in the Rebels for Joy Facebook group, so you can have deeper conversations with us there as well, and let us know, like, what you think. And we just can't wait to see you guys again on the next episode.
Yeah, ladies, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for doing this deep level of work, because as you heal a portion of yourself, you heal the entire consciousness. Like, this is big work. Bonnie, thank you so much for sharing about your story and for teaching us about forgiveness. And we will see you all on the Rebels for Joy podcast next time.
Bye.